Hey, hi. Hope everything's working this morning. Few glitches. I apologize right off the bat. But anyway, good morning. Or good day, depending on where you are. Today just want to talk a little bit about selling safety and what it takes and everything. But before I do that, I'll just get it quickly into the chat rules. I don't have the blur screen because I updated the streaming software. And as a result, I know this is going to sound a little weird, but stuff doesn't work. You would think that everything would work, but the window that blurred everything, the software that adds onto it, it doesn't work. So anyway, just excuse that for now. But a couple of things. Number one, jump into the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you do, etc. It's nice to get to know you. And just welcome, say good morning, things like that. And let's share. It's about collaboration. It's about forming community and sharing. So by all means, if you have a point or a thought or a question, pop it into the chat. I welcome all of the input, all of the comments, everything. In fact, I really favor the comments. So whenever you can, leave me a comment or pop something into the chat. I appreciate it like you wouldn't believe. And the other thing is, let's be civil, let's be collegial, let's be amicable. We weren't all born knowing health and safety. We weren't all wise sages as far as occupational health and safety goes. So you know what? Others might not know anything, so be nice and just, answer the questions and be nice about it. And I appreciate when we have that interaction. I really do. A couple of things. I was going to wear a T-shirt that I had that was commemorated the Tower of London, especially with what has happened recently, the passing of Queen Elizabeth. But it didn't work well with the background. It was too dark, and so I apologize. But I do want to recognize that we've lost a long-reigning monarch, the longest reigning in all British history. And you know what? Never met her up close. Saw her from a distance a couple of times. And I do say one thing. All of what I ever noted, she had tact, grace, and was exemplary in how she served. So, yeah, I do want to recognize that. Next thing is, with all that's going on in the news, and I'm just going to turn on the browser real quick, so I'll fade out, but it's more to make a point than anything else, is have a look, and I just did a quick search, workplace accidents in Canada. And we look and we have stuff here that, yes, dates back to articles dating back to March and April, but some as early as 6 days ago, some as 4 days ago. And you know what? We can't let events in the news overshadow the fact that workplace incidents are still happening. They are still occurring, and something needs to be done about it, and we need to be paying close attention to it. Health and safety is extremely important, and a lot of people, and that's why I started this channel, I wanted to provoke safety and get the message out there that health and safety is important. It's not just something that we pass off to get, oh, well, he's not doing anything, let's give him a health and safety responsibility. Or she's not doing anything, or her workload isn't that heavy, so let's make her the safety person as well. And you know what? That is why we have those accidents today. It really is. Really and truthfully, I also want to touch on a few other things to think about, and that is getting that safety message across. A lot of times what happens is we get called safety Nazis. Hold on, got to take a drink. Because we're passionate and adamant, almost, I don't know, safety evangelists, I guess, in getting the point across and talking about health and safety. But realistically, we do it because we not only have a passion for health and safety and a passion for what goes on and the process as a whole, but we genuinely care. We don't want to see people hurt. We don't want to see harm come to anybody. So that's what I want to talk about today. And it won't be a long stream. In fact, I don't have a lot of viewers on at the moment. But it's the fact that you need to learn to sell safety. And I hate to say it, but it begins with you. It begins with you as the safety professional. How you get the message across, but also how you carry yourself. There's an old saying is not only say it with words, but do it with deed. And that's the whole thing. You have to live out your actions. So immediately when you want to sell something, the people that you want to sell it to have to trust you. So how do they trust you, right? How do they trust you? And there's a few things that you have to understand is, number one, what are you selling? What is it you're trying to get across? What is it you're trying to promote? What is it you're trying to get that other person to buy into? Okay, so when you're doing it, the next thing is it cheap or is it quality? If you're turning out documents that are full of spelling mistakes and poor grammar and poorly formatted and obvious cut and paste errors, then you know what? Your job of selling safety is even tougher, because realistically, doesn't matter what people are buying. I'm going to turn the music down. Yeah, it doesn't matter what people are buying. They want the best. They want, and it doesn't matter if it's for $1 or $100, they want the best possible quality. So when you're considering that and that idea of selling safety, make sure that what you're selling is quality stuff. Okay, now the next thing that you have to ask yourself and consider is, are you buying what you're selling? I know, that sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? Are you buying what you're selling? But the thing is, are you leading by example? If you're promoting even PPE for that matter, are you going onto the job sites with the proper PPE? Is it in good repair? Is it being worn and used properly? If you're entering a job site and you're required to go through an orientation, but just because you're the safety professional, you figure that gives you a pass. So if you're trying to sell safety, then you have to buy what you're selling. I mean, if you wanted to go buy a car from a car salesman and they're not driving the brand that they're selling because they don't trust it, boy, would you buy it. Or if you're going to go buy a PC from somebody and they're a Mac user, then why would you buy it? Right? So the thing is, you have to buy what you're selling, and that's the way to get in trust. Now, you want to sell safety to the executives, to the upper management, the senior management, the C-suite folks. You know what? You have to win the hearts and minds of the people on the front line first. Okay? That's it in a nutshell. And to do that, they have to trust you. They have to know what you're selling. They have to believe that it's quality goods, and they have to see you buying what you're selling. Because realistically, the question they want to know is it worth it? When we are going to buy something, first things first, we want to know is it going to save us time or is it going to consume more of our time? And if I had $1 for every time I heard the phrase or the similar phrase of, you know what, safety's great, but I've got work to do. Then, well, chances are I wouldn't be doing this live stream. I'd be like sipping a nice non-alcoholic, slightly sugary drink on a beach somewhere. Because honestly, I could retire. That's the excuse a lot of people have is, I have work to do, and is this going to be more time consuming? Are you just adding more steps? So the other trick is, when you're trying to sell safety, is try to make it a routine with what's going on already. Put it all together, mold it together. How do you do that? And that means you're going to have to do some extra work. There is no magic bullet to this. Now, there's a lot of industries, especially resource-based ones, or heavy industries such as construction, civil stuff, etc., where it's a mandate and you don't have a choice. But doesn't matter where it is, that we are going to have those difficulties in selling what we're doing. I can remember when I was trying to institute a working alone process, and I was having trouble with the mid to senior management in accepting it. So what did I do? I got it at the worker level first, and I engaged the health and safety committees. And in doing that and showing them that it could be a part of the process, you know what? It was okay, because it became part of the routine. They were able to figure out how to make it part of the routine and promote it as part of their routine. So when you're doing that, that's huge, because realistically what you're convincing people is that it's now part of the routine. They're not having to go to extra work or make it doesn't have to become more difficult or anything else like that. It's part of their routine. So, in other words, it's not time consuming, it's not adding more steps, it's just becoming part of their work. Because realistically, work should continue and progress because of safety. It shouldn't come to a grinding halt or slow because of safety, okay? So that's part of how you sell it. Now, the next thing that you have to understand is, why should they care? In preparing for this, I've read a few articles and I've watched some videos from other folks, and you wouldn't believe the amount of people that have absolutely no safety background but get on and promote how to sell safety to people. It's just kind of weird. And most of the time you find out that they're salesmen or previous managers or something, and they can just sell stuff to people. But a couple of things that kind of drove me nuts is, don't emphasize that it's the law. Well, yes and no. Okay, you want to engage people and you want to encourage compliance. That's what you want to do. So, in doing so, you do have to stress that it's the law. But you also want to have an opportunity to personalize it, because everybody asks that question, what's in it for me? It doesn't matter if they're a part-time casual employee who was only come in when they're called, or the CEO. Everybody wants to know what's in it for them. So another thing that disturbs me is when you get people that say, well, don't say it's so that they can go home and be safe. Well, that's kind of retarded, really, because that's what everybody wants. Coffee time. Really and truthfully, and that's the part you want to stress, but that, going home safely is kind of, trite. It starts to get old after a while. So what you need to promote it, and a colleague and of that person that I work with, he has a really good saying, and he says there's nothing at work should interfere with my life outside of work. And he's absolutely right. So that's how you promote it. That's how you promote stuff and personalize it, because you let them know. And the easiest way is to get to know the people that you're working with. What are their hobbies? What do they like to do outside of work? And you want to know that, hey, you know what? This is going to interfere with your hiking. This is going to interfere with your biking, with your exercise, your working out, your skiing, your baking, your scrapbooking, your all of those other things that people might likely enjoy outside of work. And so what you want to do is you want to personalize it. And like I said, it doesn't matter if they're a part-time janitor or the CEO. The moment you start to make it personal, then it starts to hit home. The other thing is safer workplaces create advancement, because if you're not having to worry about your personal safety, you can focus on your work. And when you focus on your work, that stuff gets noticed. And when that stuff gets noticed, things like advancement starts to happen. And that's if you want to advance. There's people that are very comfortable being where they are and they like it. And hey, I can understand that entirely. I really can. Makes perfect sense. But the whole thing is making it personal to them. Why should they care? Now, why should you care? That's the other thing, is why should you care? What's in it for you? And the reason is you have to understand is that if you win the hearts and minds of the working folks, of the frontline workers, of the supervisors, the frontline supervisors, even the bottom line, the middle managers, you know what? Bottom up can influence top down. That's the absolute truth of it. I see I have a spelling mistake. Sorry. But bottom up can influence top down, because if the C-suite folks, if the upper management see that the workforce is buying into everything, they're going to, maybe there's something with this. So bottom up can influence top down. You also have to remember the workforce has voice. Usually the rule of thumb is 7 to 1, 7 workers, 1 supervisor, or 1 manager. And so that automatically tells you the ratio of workforce folks is much higher than the people that are higher up on the ladder. Now, I know that the people that are higher up on the ladder have more control and more responsibility, more accountability, etc. But when you have more voices, they tend to get heard. So that's the thing. If you start selling what you're trying to peddle to the numbers, then you know what? Then you get recognized. Just ask Sam Walton. Well, you can't. He's passed away. But, I mean, that's what Walmart came about, is he recognized that there's a demographic that he's got to appeal to. And you have to appeal to the people that are going to be the main users of what you're selling. Also, when you get right down to it, actions speak louder than words. So when the management sees and the executive sees that everybody is working safer, when you start to approach management about other incentives, you know what? They're going to listen. But you have to understand, once again, identify with what they care about. Okay? Yes, it's going to be personal about work not interfering with their life outside of work. Absolutely. But realistically, when it gets right down to it, they also care about their jobs, and their jobs are focused on fiscal performance. In other words, how is the money coming in? Is it coming in? Is it coming in well? And are we minimizing loss? Because the first rule of business is not to maximize profits, it's to minimize loss. So what's the profit and loss ratio? Do they care about loss? I hope I wasn't getting an echo. Can anybody tell me if I was getting echo? I don't think so. Oh, I hope not. But anyway, but the whole idea is we want to maximize profit but minimize loss. And the two have to work hand in hand. And the fact, the more that you minimize loss, conversely, the more you maximize profit. And so that's what they care about. Now, the other things that they're concerned about too is the corporate brand. Because you know what? People come and go, but the brand lasts forever. Well, for a long time anyway. Hopefully that's the whole goal, is longevity of the brand. And the social image. Now, I don't know, some people may change the order of this. They may have a different idea on the order, but that's basically, in my experience, what I've seen with executives. That's what they care about. First off, number one, money in, money out, the corporate brand and the social image. So how do you appeal to each one? And that's the important thing. And let's say that you want to sell a contractor management program. Let's use that as that case study. Let's say that you want to you've been noticing that there's been issues with contractors. You see some huge risk management gaps that you want to address with your employer, but you're meeting resistance. You're meeting resistance from the project managers. You're meeting resistance from accounts payable. You're meeting resistance from, I'll just say, we'll say the accounting and finance group as a whole. You're possibly meeting resistance from HR because, well, a lot of times if there's more contractors working, they don't have to worry as much, depending. So how do you deal with this? Well, the first thing is you have to realize that you have two choices: do something or do nothing. And that's the first rule of risk management. The very first thing that you analyze is what happens if we do nothing. Now, the next thing is, what's the something we do? And unfortunately, you know what? Sometimes, and in fact, a lot of times, you have to build that most probable worst case scenario. Hey, if we're hiring contractors and they don't have proper WCB coverage, that means we're on the hook for it. And contractor management programs, believe it or not, usually the first rule of thumb is looking and make sure that they have premiums paid up to date and you can get a clearance letter, making sure that they have the right insurances and commercial general liability in place and all of that stuff. But you'd be surprised at the amount of people that don't take those simple risk management steps when they're hiring a contractor. And that includes large corporations. So you may have to take a hypothetical situation, or trust me, there's lots in the news. You can just Google it and have a look. But you may have to take and build a hypothetical situation or use a simple news example, because sometimes doomsday sayers get heard. And unfortunately, I don't like to be that guy either. I don't like to have to be, this is the worst case scenario, because then you become exactly that, Kevin Doomsday. No, I don't want to do that, but sometimes you have to. So, profits or losses. It is all about the money. I know a lot of times people will think that, well, you're just worrying about the money. It's not necessarily that. It's the fact that, well, you know what? Companies that aren't profitable, or divisions or departments that aren't profitable, well, they get shut down. So realistically, it is about the money. So you have to turn it into that. The other thing is, don't necessarily talk lawsuits. Talk work stoppage. I have to adjust my PowerPoint. Just hang on just a sec. Oh, well, we'll leave it. I won't worry about it. So don't talk about lawsuits. Don't talk about that. Talk about where the money is. And that's work stoppage. Okay? You know what? Yeah, you can have a lawsuit, and a lawsuit can be fought out in court. And a lot of cases, you can have insurance against that. You can have insurance against all sorts of things, like even work stoppage. But realistically, court cases take a while, so insurance, you can start to prepare for it. Work stoppage starts to affect the bottom line right now. So if there's a fatality or a serious incident on the job site, it can get shut down and work can get delayed and it can get stopped for a long time. So use that as one of your focuses. Work can get stopped. Then the other thing is, conversely, restart costs. They can be huge. Okay? You may have to get in new equipment, temporary shelters, all sorts of things. And you know what? They tend to end up being a premium cost, because the reaction is, just grab it now, we'll worry about the cost later. I can't tell you how many times I've seen in emergencies and working with business continuity that saying always happens. And that's why it's important to have a business continuity plan. Maybe something for a live stream series. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But restart costs can be huge. Now, the other thing is, WCB and or insurance, usually they run on a 3-year trend. So the moment if you're stuck with paying for a contractor's WCB because they haven't had any, they've let it lapse, you didn't track it down, then you know what? You're going to get hit with a surcharge. And that surcharge, it can take 3 years to get back down to what you were. And in that 3 years, well, you can have another accident. So think about the costs and the premium costs as they can go up, and how it's a 3-year recovery. It's not just pay it now and you're done. Okay? Yes, you can assume WCB costs. You can. But that can be a long-term nightmare. So don't do that. Now, the brand. As I said before, yeah, people come, people go, but the brand lasts quite a while. So I had somebody once tell me when I was working for a post-secondary institution, your job is to protect the president and keep him out of jail. No, it's not. If the president wants to end up in jail because he's stupid, there's nothing I can do about that. There's no fixing stupid. Okay? However, my job is to provide him the best advice possible so that I can protect the brand. Because presidents and CEOs come and go, but the brand lasts. And that's your job, is to protect the brand. It's not to protect anybody above you. It's to protect the brand. The next thing is, of course, is protecting all of the people that work within the organization. But if you're doing one, you're doing two. Now, you have to understand that no such thing as bad press. Well, not really. Okay. In this day and age, especially with, it was a good saying a long time ago when it was just a newspaper and a television newscast. Now it's different. We have social media. Everybody has a cell phone. I mean, look, you have this guy standing in front of you right now on whatever device talking about health and safety. So everybody has the opportunity to be a journalist. And so, yes, you can have bad press. You can have bad advertising real quick and just picture this. You didn't choose a contractor right. The contractor had no WCB or had poor WCB, it lapsed, no commercial general liability insurance, no indicator on how they had a health and safety program, no process on managing the workers, and somebody ends up having an accident and dies. No fault of yours on the job site. The contractor is totally responsible. Who do you think is going to be in the news? Really? Who do you think is going to be in the news? Okay, it's going to be your job site, your company. The contractor might get there, but the headline is going to capture the big guy. Small investments in safety can prevent those big costs later. They absolutely can. And that's how you make sure that you protect the brand. And so part of what you're going to have to do, and I'm going to talk about what you have to do in just a sec, so stick with me, but is protecting also the social image. Because realistically, nobody wants to read about the little guy. They don't care. Okay? I want you to picture wherever you live right now, that there is a large building owned by a large company. Pick one. It doesn't really matter. And that building is owned by the company, but they have a management firm that manages it. And that management firm has, well, as a way to skim costs, hired a contractor with, questionable business practices. And as a result, a worker has died. Who do you think is going to be in the news first? Okay? Honestly. And really and truthfully, nobody cares about Acme bricklaying or whatever the case may be. They're going to look at the fact that it was mega business, building owner, and maybe they might read far enough to see that it was a smaller business, building management corporation, but that's it. Nobody wants to read about the little guy, and they honestly aren't going to care. So you have to realize too, is you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to say in front of a judge? And when I've had to pitch things to executives, senior managers, I always say that here's my litmus test. Number one is, what are you willing to say in front of a judge? Number two is, what are you willing to read in the news tomorrow? And number three is, what are you willing to tell your wife and kids or your husband and children or significant other and children? What are you willing to tell them? Okay? So woulda, coulda, shoulda isn't going to cut it, because they're still going to ask, no matter what. If you say, well, I would have done this, I could have done this, I should have done this, why didn't you? Okay? Now, the other thing you have to remember when you're trying to protect the brand and the social image is the public has difficulty with forgiveness. I mean, if you've followed any type of social media right now, you'll see that. Absolutely. And they honestly do. With the advent of social media and the way it is, the fact that conscience has become an all-time low, ethics and morals in a lot of cases too. I mean, it wasn't just a short time ago that we saw the people who were not willing to accept a therapeutic treatment of any type were considered pariahs, and there was people calling for them to be sequestered, put in camps, and so forth, and very heinous things. So what do you think is going to happen, and how do you think they're going to treat your organization? And so these are things that you can use when you're preparing what you're going to do. And so what do you do? And like I said, there's no magic bullet. There's no easy way to do this, okay? You're going to have to build a business case. This is going to take some work. And the format, and I won't go into it. I won't say how to do it because there is a ton of templates out there, okay? You can just Google business case template, and there'll be a lot that you can choose from. You're going to have to figure out what's going to work for you. It could be as simple as a bunch of bullet points in a Word document. That's simple. That's what it could be. Just a bunch of bullet points in a Word document. Or it could be very detailed, where you're going to have graphs and pie charts and all of those things where you crunch the numbers, and you're going to be able to show projections in insurance, WCB costs, legal fees, all of those other costs that are there. That iceberg theory that a lot of people have seen before in the past of hidden costs works really well. Use it, okay? It's a very good illustration. And in fact, it's part of building that risk management profile, okay? So always understand that and consider that is when you're doing this, you have to build a business case, and you have to sell it, and you have to speak the language of your audience. So as I said, win the hearts and minds of the other folks. Win the hearts and minds of let me try that again. Win the hearts and minds of the masses, the groups, the workers that you're working with, your coworkers, your colleagues, all of the folks that matter, the people that are going to be using these health and safety processes that you're churning out. Because once again, more voices means you're going to get heard more, okay? That's one. Number two is make sure that you're buying what you're selling and that they can trust you, because if you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk, that's going to be a whole big difference. So not just in word alone, but in deed as well, okay? Talk the talk, but walk the walk. And then when you want to sell safety and you want to do it in an erudite way, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make sure that you do your research, you have good credible numbers, because the last thing, and you know what, you always have to make this assumption. When I was young and first started doing this job, I always thought that I was the smartest guy in the room. When I changed my tactic and I started to realize that everybody else in the room is likely a lot smarter than me, things started to work a lot better. So make sure that all of your information is credible and reliable, okay, up to date and as most recent as possible. If you're going to use examples of a worst case scenario, make sure it applies. If you are working in a lumber manufacturing area, like a sawmill, you know what? Don't take any kind of incidents or something that has occurred or a worst case scenario from a metal manufacturing place or automotive manufacturing, because they're apples and oranges. But if you can find something in even a sawmill in another country, you know what? It helps to make a better comparison, because apples and potatoes don't compare well. Apples and oranges, a little bit better, because at least they're both fruit, okay? and do a good job of putting everything together. Make sure that there's no spelling mistakes. Make sure that you have good formatting. Make sure that what you're going to propose is done well. If you have to deliver a presentation, practice it. Practice looking at your people, look at the mirror, say it a few times, and even if you have to, call somebody and say, hey, can I pitch this to you? I got to meet with the executive tomorrow and I just want to pitch this to you. Because if anything else, let's say that your contractor management program that I was talking about, which is important, it really is. Having a contractor management program is important. But if the executive doesn't buy it, if they don't pick up what you're laying down, then you know what? At least you can walk away and go, well, I did the best I could. I put my best foot forward. I did all my research. I was prepared and I had everything done as I should have. If they don't pick up what you're laying down, you do have the opportunity to say, I told you so. It might not keep you employed, but you have that opportunity. At least you did the best that you can do. And, you know, I used to be quite snarky at times, and my end saying was all the time, you can listen to me now or wish you'd listen to me later. It's the truth, but it doesn't necessarily win over that well. Okay? Honestly. So I can't stress it enough. Yeah. And so that's it. That's my summary. That's it. Like I said, it was a short live stream. I realize it's just after a long weekend. Don't have a lot of people online. If anybody has any questions, fire them through. If not, you can leave some in the comments. I really like the opportunity to answer questions, and I didn't have any come in the last little while. So really, I don't have any questions to answer or anything to talk about. Hopefully, I'll have some for the next live stream. Yeah. Well, well, if nobody has any questions, nothing further, you know what I'll do? I will, yeah, I'll sign off because, yeah, it's been enjoyable. It's been a good time. So, once again, thanks for hanging out. 38 minutes, that's not too bad. So thanks for hanging out. And for those of you that are going to watch this later on, by all means, do me a favor, leave me a comment. I appreciate the comments, every single one of them. If you feel like it, do me a favor, give me a like, poke that like button. I do appreciate that as well. And by all means, if you haven't yet, do me a favor, click that subscribe button, ding the little bell. You'll get notified of when there's another live stream or other new comment or content. In fact, in about 20 minutes, there's another video coming out on some things that you should and shouldn't do when you start on the new job as a new safety person. Because realistically, I've made some mistakes and they didn't go over well. And yes, first impressions, although we shouldn't judge a book by its cover or the first impressions, we all do. So it's important you make the proper first impression. So I've got a few hints on what to do to win the hearts and minds of people when you first start on a job. And so, yeah, tune in and have a look at that. But anyway, I'm going to bid you adieu. Take care. Oh, and I'm using a blue screen, or a green screen. So I want to see. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, change to a different view. So do me a favor. Don't just think about safety. Don't just talk about it. Be an influencer. Provoke safety wherever you are. Okay? Take care. Bye for now.